The night was heavy with rain, the kind that drummed against the pavement so hard it drowned out most other sounds. Marcus hunched over the wheel of his old sedan, the windshield wipers screeching back and forth, struggling to keep the glass clear. He had been driving for hours, picking up passengers here and there through a ride-hailing app, just trying to scrape enough together to cover the week's expenses. His stomach growled. He hadn't eaten more than a sandwich all day, but he told himself he could wait until after one more fare. Rent was looming, and so were the utility bills. Hunger could wait. As he turned onto a quieter street, his headlights cut through the sheets of water and landed on a figure near the curb. A woman stood there, completely drenched, her arms wrapped around a small boy who clung to her shoulder. Even through the foggy glass, Marcus could see the boy's face, pale and strained, his chest rising in shallow, uneven movements. The woman looked around frantically, as though searching for a miracle in the storm. Marcus didn't hesitate. He slowed down, rolled down the window a crack, and shouted through the rain, "Do you need help?" The woman rushed forward, pulling the boy closer. Her hair stuck to her cheeks, and her eyes, wide with fear, locked onto his. "Please," she begged, her voice breaking. "My son, he can't breathe properly. I need to get him to the hospital now." Marcus reached across to unlock the passenger door. "Get in," he said, his tone firm but calm. She slid into the back seat with the boy in her arms, her hands trembling as she tried to soothe him. Marcus glanced in the rearview mirror, watching as the little boy wheezed, his lips tinged slightly blue. The sight sent a knot of urgency into Marcus's chest. "Hold on, buddy," Marcus muttered, his foot pressing harder on the gas. He weaved into the main road, splashing through puddles, honking when cars failed to move fast enough. The rain blurred everything outside, but his focus sharpened like a blade. Every red light felt like an enemy. Every slow driver in front of him felt like a wall he had to break through. The woman leaned over her son, whispering softly, rocking him slightly as though her voice alone could coax breath back into his lungs. "Stay with me, sweetheart. Just hold on a little longer." Her words cracked under the weight of fear. Marcus gripped the wheel tighter. "How far is the hospital?" he called back. "St. Mary's," she answered, her voice nearly drowned out by the storm. "It's on Broad Street. Please, hurry." "I know it," Marcus said, leaning forward as though the extra inch would make the car go faster. His knuckles were white against the steering wheel, but his eyes stayed steady. The ride felt endless, but in truth, it took less than 10 minutes. When they screeched into the emergency entrance, Marcus slammed the gear into park and jumped out without a thought for himself. He ran around, opened the door, and helped lift the boy into his arms. Together, he and the mother rushed through the sliding doors where doctors and nurses immediately descended, wheeling the child onto a stretcher. The woman turned to Marcus, her face streaked with rain and tears. She opened her mouth to speak, but he shook his head. "Take care of him," he said quietly, backing away. And just like that, he slipped out into the rain again, a shadow vanishing into the storm, unaware that what he had just done would change the course of his life forever. Marcus tried to put the whole thing out of his mind. He had done his part, helped a mother in need, gotten her boy to safety, and left. That was enough. He wasn't the type of man who expected thanks or recognition. Life had hardened him that way. But still, the image of the little boy struggling for breath stayed with him, creeping into his thoughts whenever the silence of his apartment grew too heavy. The next few days were a blur of exhaustion. Marcus juggled long hours behind the wheel with the gnawing worry of overdue bills. His landlord had already slipped a warning under the door, and his phone buzzed with reminders from the power company. He was running on fumes, both financially and emotionally, but he kept going. That's what survival demanded. On the third afternoon, he parked outside a worn-down diner to nurse a cup of cheap coffee. The rain had cleared, but the sky was still gray, matching his mood. He rubbed his tired eyes, wondering how much longer he could keep this up. That was when a sleek, black luxury car pulled up across the street. Marcus barely noticed until the door opened and a familiar figure stepped out. The woman from that night, the mother, walked toward him with a grace that stood out even against the dull surroundings. This time she wasn't frantic or soaked in rain, she was composed, elegant. Her tailored coat hugged her frame, her hair neatly styled, her presence commanding. Marcus straightened in his seat, uneasy. She stopped at his table, a small smile on her lips. "It's you," she said softly. Marcus blinked, unsure if he should stand or stay seated. "Yeah," he replied awkwardly. "How's your boy?" "He's doing much better," she said warmly. "Thanks to you." The doctor said a few more minutes and, her voice trailed off, eyes glistening. She quickly recovered. "You saved his life that night." Marcus shifted uncomfortably, waving a hand as though brushing off her words. "I just drove. Anyone would have done the same." "No," she said firmly, leaning closer. "Most people would have passed by. Most people would have hesitated. But you didn't. You didn't know us, yet you risked everything in that storm." Her words sank into him, though he tried not to show it. Marcus wasn't used to being noticed. He lived in the shadows, working quietly, doing what needed to be done. Praise felt foreign, almost uncomfortable. The woman studied him closely. She noticed the threadbare jacket, the worn shoes, the deep lines of fatigue etched into his face. She saw the man behind the kindness, the man life had clearly not been gentle with. Something stirred inside her, a mix of gratitude and resolve. "I never got your name," she said. "Marcus," he answered simply. "Marcus," she repeated, as though memorizing it. "I'm Claire, and I don't forget people who change my life." Marcus gave a faint nod, unsure what she meant, but the intensity in her voice lingered with him long after she left. He didn't know it yet, but Claire had plans that would soon alter the course of his struggling existence. A week later, Marcus's phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. He almost ignored it. Bill collectors had been relentless lately, but something nudged him to pick up. The voice on the other end was Claire's. "Marcus, I'd like you to meet me tomorrow. There's something important I want to discuss. Please come, it matters." The address she gave him was downtown, in a part of the city Marcus usually avoided. Shiny skyscrapers, luxury cars, and people in suits, it wasn't his world. But curiosity gnawed at him, so the next morning, he made the trip. When he arrived, his old sedan looked painfully out of place in front of the towering glass building. He almost turned back, but Claire appeared in the lobby before he could leave. She greeted him warmly, her son by her side, healthy, smiling, holding a toy truck in his hand. The boy's simple, "Hi, mister," melted some of Marcus's tension. Claire led him into the building, up an elevator that seemed to climb forever. The doors opened to a spacious office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. Marcus felt out of place immediately, his rough hands twitching at his sides. "What am I doing here?" he asked cautiously. Claire turned, her expression calm but serious. "Marcus, I never told you about my family. We own this company. My parents built it, and I've been running it since they passed. That night in the rain, you didn't know who I was. You didn't care. You just helped." Marcus frowned, uncomfortable. "Like I said before, I wasn't looking for anything." "I know," she said gently. "That's exactly why I want to offer you something. A chance." She slid a folder across the polished desk. Inside is an offer for a stable position with as good pay, benefits, security. You've been carrying the weight of the world alone for too long. Let me take some of it off your shoulders." Marcus stared at the folder, his mind racing. Could this be real? A job like this could change everything. No more worrying about rent or skipping meals to make ends meet. But it felt surreal, like a dream he wasn't sure he deserved. "You don't owe me this," he said finally, voice rough. Claire smiled. "Maybe not, but I owe you my son's life. And this isn't charity, Marcus. I see something in you, a loyalty, a strength most people don't have. I want people like you on my team." Her son tugged at Marcus's sleeve, eyes bright. "You're my hero," the boy whispered. For the first time in years, Marcus felt something shift inside him. A warmth he had nearly forgotten. He closed the folder slowly, looked up at Claire, and nodded. "All right," he said quietly. In that moment, Marcus realized one act of kindness had rewritten his future. He had stepped into the rain that night with nothing to give but his time and courage, never knowing it would lead him to a second chance at life.